Of all the tasks assigned to UN forces, demilitarization operations are particularly crucial since by definition, these operations have the aim of separating adversaries engaged in actual armed conflict. Therefore, these tasks contribute concretely to the resumption of peace. Contrary to buffer zones, demilitarized zones are not normally occupied by neutral peacekeeping forces. Instead, they are patrolled by observer teams or supervised by means of observation posts. The aim of demilitarized zones is to prevent the stationing of military forces or belligerent activities. In general, these are zones which are claimed by two parties and which the capture by one of the parties would constitute a threat to the other. In summary, demilitarization operations are conducted in the following manner. Negotiations for a ceasefire and political accord. On the ground, determination of the demarcation and withdrawal lines agreed to in the negotiations. Establishment of UN observation posts and traffic checkpoints. Execution and supervision of the withdrawal or disengagement of antagonist forces who will withdraw behind their respective lines. And finally, the interposition of a UN peacekeeping force by means of patrols, as well as a network of observation and traffic control posts, checkpoints previously or simultaneously established.
Tell them that they have to stay calm.
The parameters for the negotiations leading to the creation of demilitarized zones are numerous and complex. Of course, these involve discussions on the definition of ceasefire and demarcation lines, thus permitting the establishment of weapons withdrawal lines. The concerned parties also discuss details such as the removal or the replacement of infrastructure which will be abandoned by the belligerents, the establishment of milestones for the withdrawal of troops and weapons, decisions concerning the fate of civilians in the defined zones. The parties in place also identify the position of minefields and other man-made obstacles. An agreement on patrol plans and the creation of arms collection points must also be reached.
Okay, tell them that we seem to have an agreement now on the 3 points, the first point being that area.
In fact, the demilitarization operations carried out on the ground by UN forces have but one aim: the application of an accord agreed to by the belligerent parties, which will eventually evolve into a permanent peace.
Monsieur le Colonel.
Messieurs, repos, j'ai une bonne nouvelle. Hier, on a finalement eu un accord entre les commandants des forces belligérantes concernant le processus de désengagement. Ça n'a pas été facile, et à plusieurs temps, ça a failli tomber à l'eau, mais maintenant, on a un accord et il va falloir agir rapidement sur le terrain afin d'éviter les accrochages qui pourraient survenir et compromettre l'accord. Vous avez tous reçu une copie du tracé et des ordres écrits, donc sans plus tarder, messieurs, les ordres, en débutant par l'exposé de l'officier de renseignement.
Messieurs, la situation des belligérants.
After the negotiations, the first task in a demilitarization operation will consist of defining the demarcation and withdrawal lines on the ground. But before these lines are defined, they must be drawn with precision onto the map. A thick line drawn with a marker or dull pencil could easily correspond to a 400-meter wide band on the ground, which could be misused by the parties. The first task to be carried out will therefore be to confirm the disengagement lines with the belligerents and record the description clearly and succinctly in writing with references to map coordinates or natural features. This line will have to be surveyed and defined using natural contours. On the ground, the definition of the line will lead to further negotiations, usually when geographical or tactical considerations cause disadvantage to a party. Whenever possible, it is important that the defined lines not give any military or tactical advantage to either party. It is important that the lines be easily recognizable by all parties in place, and that the maps used by all are identical, with the same scale and printing date, in order to avoid any confusion and prevent misunderstandings which may lead to a resumption of hostilities.
Il a été convenu que toutes les troupes et les armes des belligérants vont se retirer 2 kilomètres de part et d'autre de la ligne de démarcation. Afin qu'on convainque les deux factions de reculer, la première étape va consister en l'installation de postes d'observation ONU tout le long de la ligne de démarcation.
Interposition is the physical act of placing a buffer force between the two antagonist forces with the aim of preventing the start or resumption of the hostilities. Whenever possible, this is done before disengagement, or if applicable, at least with minimal delay to avoid any encounters which might provoke a resumption of the fighting, and thus inspire confidence in the peace plan. The establishment of UN checkpoints between the parties is therefore the first real interposition action. As a priority, we must seize control of the access routes across the demarcation line, since these points are generally where you have the most important concentration of belligerent forces and therefore present the greatest risk of confrontation.
Prioritairement, on va installer nos postes de contrôle de la circulation le long des deux voies d'accès principales qui traversent la ligne de désengagement. Les forces belligérantes ont assemblé beaucoup d'armements autour de ces deux points-là. Une fois qu'on sera bien établi, tel que convenu, les forces belligérantes devraient commencer à démanteler le bunker et retirer leurs armes de part et d'autre de la ligne de démarcation.
The initial withdrawal of weapons from the demilitarized zone will be the first sign on the ground of the existence of a peace agreement and the first concrete act towards pacification. The UN forces have an active role to play at this stage. For example, a simple action such as assistance in the removal of heavy assault weapons can ensure the timely start of the withdrawal and incite the remaining troops to leave the demilitarized zone. Therefore, with the establishment of the withdrawal zone, it is important that the civilian population may continue its normal activities and live in peace. In addition to the checkpoints, one must plan for meeting areas and the procedures under which divided populations, often contained in these enclaves, may meet and, if required, pass from one zone to the other.
En plus de retirer toutes leurs armes lourdes et leurs troupes de 2 km de part et d'autre de la ligne de désengagement, les forces belligérantes se sont mis d'accord à se retirer dans un rayon de 5 km autour des villages de Bronosvok et Grand Aulis. Dans ces zones, seules les armes de calibre 7,62 mm ou moins vont être tolérées.
Once the withdrawal zone has been established, the main role of the interposition force will be to observe and supervise the accords on the control of weapons. Obviously, carrying out such a surveillance mission over a large area from fixed checkpoints or an observation post's network requires considerable resources which are often unavailable. With limited resources, in order to be successful in supervising all territories identified in the Demilitarization Agreement, one must establish a system of patrols. Be they motorized, on foot, or airborne, the patrol method selected will depend on the type of approval forecasted, the nature of the terrain, the size of the area to be supervised, and the available resources. Patrols have the following principal objectives: the gathering of information, investigation, surveillance, display of presence, and intervention in order to bring the belligerents to respect the terms of the signed accord.
Notre plan de patrouille va se concentrer en priorité sur les zones réglementées où les forces belligérantes pourraient être tentées de camoufler des armes plutôt que de les retirer telles que convenu.
Before making a patrol plan, one must consider the obstacle plans supplied by the belligerents. The ground abandoned by the combatants is often laced with obstacles of all kinds: barbed wire, craters, fallen trees often booby-trapped or mined. Therefore, mine clearance is a priority task, particularly in the zones nearby UN posts and headquarters, as well as patrol routes. Since it is impossible to patrol the entire demilitarized zone, the patrolling plan must be established to permit a representative sampling of the territory. An important factor in the successful conduct of mobile surveillance operations is the unpredictability of patrols. Before conducting operations, one must also confirm any restrictions that may be imposed on patrol movement as a result of the accord on the status of forces. These elements, as well as the positions of the respective lines, must be clearly indicated on the patrol's maps. In addition to the maps, one must prepare all necessary documents for the patrol, copies of the accord and written descriptions of the zones agreed to by the parties, and copies of the orders issued by the belligerents in their respective languages. Often, patrols will make use of local guides. While maintaining good relations with these guides, it is important for the members of the patrol to remain vigilant in case of attempts at manipulation or any hesitation displayed by the guides.
Hey, Don!
Upon discovery of a situation which constitutes a violation of the accord, the patrol may have to negotiate the withdrawal of troops and found weapons in accordance with SOPs and given orders. In such a case, copies of the original orders issued by belligerent commanders may prove to be a strong asset in convincing subordinates to obey the orders of their superiors and the terms of the accord.
No good. No good. No good.
Yeah.
No good. No good.
Yeah,
No
close
good.
enough. 5, 10 kilometers more.
No good.
Yeah.
Come on.
In all cases, radio contact with the base must be maintained in order to permit liaison officers at the local headquarters to assist in resolving the situation and to ensure the accords are respected. In cases where parties contest their location, the use of GPS receivers by the patrol will unarguably confirm the position of weapons and troops. The patrol will supervise the withdrawal of delinquent forces or may even begin the collecting of weapons, if such procedures are included in the accord. In that case, seized equipment shall be taken to an arms collection point under UN supervision. Immediately upon its return following the operation, the patrol must provide a report on its mission without pausing for rest, sleep, or food. Demilitarization operations are in fact a process phased out over a long period of time. Only accurate after-action reports will convey a precise picture of the evolving situation. In the demilitarization process, patrols are the main form of action and a basic source of information. The information gathered by patrols are an important part of the information network on which assessments and decisions are based. From the negotiations to the patrol, the overall stages of a demilitarization operation contribute to the preservation of a lasting peace, both on the ground and on paper.